Greetings. Welcome to the Money Script Podcast. I'm your host, Yohance Harrison, financial advisor and financial literacy educator. In each episode, you'll hear incredible interviews and get tips and strategies that you can implement into your daily life to help you improve your money script and grow your wealth. Thank you for taking some time with me today. Let's get into this episode of the Money Script. What were did you have some people that, really lost a lot of money and were having a rough time?
Yeah, so the people who lost money during that time frame, as far as the clients I was working with, were the ones who didn't take my advice. And what I mean by that, we had some folks who, case in point, we worked at GM, right? And inside their GM 401k, 100% GM stock.
Oh,
My advice to them, hey, even this was before the market crash. So this is around the 2004, 5, 6 time frame. Hey, client, you probably shouldn't have that high of a concentration of GM stock inside your portfolio. Oh, Perry, nothing's going to happen in GM stock. I've been working here 50 years. My grandfather worked here 1,000 years. And so 100% of the portfolio was GM stock. So those individuals who did not take my advice, lost all of their retirement. Now, the ones who were prudent and took the advice of, the quote unquote expert at that time, obviously we saw some dips. But if you think about when we hit that bottom, what was it, in March of 2009, point to where we are today, it's been straight gains. So those individuals who stayed the course, continue and stay the course. I mean, for those individuals who weren't retiring for a long period of time, I'll get into kind of my take on financial planning and where to put money. But for those individuals who were younger investors and not retiring for, 20, 30 years, hey, it was a great buying opportunity, right? Especially if they had, dollar cost averaging going on inside your 401ks and things of that nature. But the individuals who were about to retire, who weren't prudent and didn't take the advice, it was a bad time for some of them, unfortunately. So, I did my job to paint the picture and say, hey, this is how we should be positioned based upon your age, your risk tolerance, your time horizon, and kind of what that end goal is. And, so that's another lesson I learned during that time frame, that everybody's not going to take your advice. Ultimately, is our clients, is their money. Our job is to advise them. So really, they're driving the car. We're just the passenger who's giving them the directions, kind of like the GPS.
I love it. That's a good analogy. I will be casing that. That's something I learned from you.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We're not going to tell you guys what that means. You'll have to learn on another episode. Anywho, it's funny you mentioned GM. In 2007 and 8, that was actually my second recession. I got started in the business. My first day to meet with new clients was supposed to be September 12th, 2001.
Ooh.
Okay. So, look, I didn't even know if I was going to have a job in 2 months.
Right.
All we knew was the market's not open. You can't really do anything. It was like, well, what do you mean? I'm supposed to be transitioning to this draw type salary, but now you're telling me I can't earn any commissions. I don't. Okay.
You're right.
So we all got moved out a month. And so we started seeing new clients on October the 11th. However, my son was born on October the 10th. So I still wound up missing my first day.
Right.
But at that time, accounts were dropping, 25, 35%. Yeah. And I was in Dallas, Texas at the time. And Dallas, kind of the area I was swimming in, somehow mistakenly, there was a lot of people in telecom consulting. And telecom got hit pretty bad during that time frame, Sprint and AT&T and all of those. Yep. It was an interesting time. But living through it then, I walked into the business in the recession. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know what it meant to make money. All I knew was I was like, oh, this investing thing, I know it was working in the 90s when I was trying to get into the business, but now all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore, and the dot bomb, whatever they wanted to call it. And I'm like, okay, all right, this will be interesting. But then, like you, go 02, 03, 04, 05. Everyone And honestly, I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I was just doing what my mentor was telling me to do. And I was reading the books and learning about Harry Markowitz and learning about the random walks around Wall Street and all those fun things. And just applying that and saying to my clients, hey, what I'm being told is diversification and stay invested. Don't panic.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I know we have every reason to panic, but don't. This isn't the end of the world.
Yep.
And I saw clients where, for instance, when I was courting them over the summer, I knew that they had 100,000. By the time they became a client in October, they had, call it 70,000. By the time we got into, 2002, it was probably worth 65,000. So 45% of their money was gone.
Yeah.
By the time, for the people that did nothing, by the time we got to 2007, they had $200,000. Mm-hmm. So not only had it gone back up to 100, it then doubled to 200,000. And they were looking at me like, wow, you're a genius. I'm like, no.
We just stayed invested. We stayed the course. Yeah.
That's what they said to do. And apparently this works. And by then I'd learned more about the history, studied more about the history. It's like, oh no, this works. You just stay invested, learning from people like Warren Buffett and hearing what he's saying. And when everyone's being greedy, be fearful. When everyone's being fearful, be greedy. And I was like, okay, I can take that to charge. So similar to your GM story, I had a gentleman that I would see him in the elevator. He was a vice president for Washington Mutual.
Okay.
And I kept saying, come sit down with me. Let's talk. But he would, kind of puff out his chest a little bit and say, I'm smarter than you. I've got over $1 million in my 401k. How much do you have in yours? I'm like, well, you're 65. I'm 27. So, I mean, I don't think that's the compare. But in his mind, he felt that made him smarter. And so finally he comes in and he shows me his 401k statement. And it's over $1 million and it's all in Washington Mutual stock.
Oh.
And mind you, the Washington Mutual had Tesla-like returns back then. I mean, it was up 300, 400%. It was just a lot. I don't remember the numbers, but he had made a lot of money. He had probably only put 200,000 in his 401k and it was worth almost $2 million.
Oh my goodness.
And Washington Mutual, just like GM, their stock went to zero.
Plummeted.
Can't really recover from zero.
No.
When it goes bankrupt, that's it. So diversification is key. So it sounds like you learned that early on and you're still a big fan of it now. So tell me, what were some of the conversations? Yeah, I jumped on and did an episode this week on Monday, mind you, when the market was down 1,000 points, and then Tuesday down another 800. And as of when we started taping this, it was up, and then as I walked past the television, it was back down. Like,
Indeed.
Okay, so apparently it has not found the cure for the virus yet.
It did not.
But what are for some of your? Let's talk about what to say to new investors, because I find sometimes they're the ones, if they just got into the market over the last year or 2 years, all they know is that you put your money in and it goes up by 50%.
And you make money. Yeah. So I'm gonna share, I guess it would be my industry secret with you and your listeners and listeners. Before I even get into this, let me say this. I just absolutely admire Yohance, because we're both in the same industry. And a lot of times people think when you're in the same industry that you have to compete with each other. And me and this young man, this brother, we do not compete. We support each other and share some of the best practices with each other, how we help our clients out. So one, I just want to commend you for bringing me on, because another advisor would be like, oh no, I'm not bringing another advisor onto my show. And the fact that you're bringing another advisor to maybe give a different perspective or, piggyback off of some of the concepts that you have, man, just mad kudos to you and crazy respect. And when I do my podcast, I promise I'm going to have you on. Hey. So with that being said, man, it's crazy. My clients who have been with me now don't call me when the market goes down. And this is my secret. And literally the only reason I have appointments on my calendar this week is because I reached out to clients with an email and said, hey, the market's been crazy. If we need to review your financial plan, give me a call. what I found is through my 17 years and going through, the Great Recession, is if you have a solid financial plan on the front end, investment is easy on the back end. So my rule of thumb is this: I won't invest a client's I won't invest a dime of a client's money. I won't open up an account until they've invested in the financial plan. Because I believe the financial plan is the blueprint to the wealth home. So if you were going to build your first home, the first thing you would do, you want to go out and start buying furniture, you would hire an architect to draw your ideal home. And after you have the home drawn, and you hire the contractors to come in and build it, then you start adding furniture. So I say the financial plan is the blueprint, and the furniture are the investments, because you can always rearrange your furniture, but after that home is built, you can't rearrange the walls. That's kind of what it is. So my philosophy on investing is this, and all of my clients know it, and when they call me, these are the conversations we have. Our conversations is usually 5 to 10 minute conversation. It goes like this: we invest our financial plan is built on what we call a bucket plan, which is a strategy I learned from a company up in Cleveland called Clarity to Prosperity. And the bucket plan is simply this: you have a now bucket, a soon bucket, and a later on bucket. Your now bucket is money you need in the next 12 months or less, so in less than a year. Your soon bucket is money that you plan on accessing in the next 2 to 10 years. And your later on bucket is money you don't plan on touching for 10 years plus. Now, that can be in all different kinds of accounts. I'm not going to get into all of that. But when we work with our clients, they have a now bucket, a soon bucket, and a later on bucket. The now bucket, for less than a year, if you plan on using this money less than a year, you shouldn't be invested. So that money is in cash. So we ain't worried about losing cash. So that's what it is. We're just worried about, can we get a decent interest rate on it. Your soon money you plan on using in the next 2 to 10 years. So if you plan on retiring in the next 2 to 10 years, or sending a kid to school in the next 2 to 10 years, or whatever financial goal you have in the next 2 to 10 years, we keep that in a conservative investment. Conservative investment could be a multitude of different things. It could be, a very balanced or bond portfolio, or you could be in some type of annuity, something that's giving you some type of, insurance product, giving you some type of guarantee or principal, or whatever the case may be. It could be whatever you and your client decide on. But that bucket is the more conservative bucket. If we can keep up with inflation, we're cool with that bucket. And then your later on bucket, money you don't plan on touching for 10 years plus, that's where we're heavy in the market, in the quote unquote equities or stocks, or things of that nature. So literally all of my clients are set up that way. They know not to call me about the stock market going down, because we know that's later on money. And if they do call, they say, oh my God, Perry, worry about the portfolio. Which one are you worried about? Are you worried about your now, your soon, or your later on bucket? Just so we're talking about the same amount, the same money. Well, I'm worried about the soon bucket. Well, we got that in a fixed product that has some type of principal guarantee on it. So I don't know, what are we worried about? Well, you're right, Perry. What are we worried about? Okay, great. So how's the family doing? Right? Or it's, hey, I don't plan on touching this money for 10 years plus. Are you talking to me about your later on bucket? Oh my God, Tesla went down. Great. Tesla is in which bucket? You're now, sooner, you're later on, Mr. Client, Mrs. Client. Well, it's in my later on bucket. So we don't plan on touching that for how long? 10 years. Do you think Tesla's going to be okay? It has some runway and technology in the direction you're going in with auto and whatnot. Yeah, I think that's still a solid play, Perry. Okay, so how's the family doing, and how's everybody else? Right. So literally, I don't get client phone calls freaking out about the market, because they've all been conditioned and trained to know now, sooner, and later. And Yohance, even when they call me up and say, hey, Perry, I got an extra 10,000 or extra 100,000 or whatever the case may be, or I got a rollover. My question to them was just simply, great, is this going into your now, soon, or later on bucket? And they'll say, well, it's going into my later on bucket. Okay, we'll put it into later on portfolio. Or it's going to my soon bucket. I'm gonna need this in 2 to 10 years. That's where it's going. Oh, hey, I'm gonna need this $10,000 to buy a house in 6 months. Oh, guess what? Now bucket, we're not investing and keep it in cash. So I haven't had a lot of conversations with folks. Like literally, my clients, I feel sometimes like they're ignoring me. So I have to call them up and be like, hey, you got any questions about anything? No, Perry. I know my now, soon, and later on buckets. So that's my industry secret. I know it kind of makes investing sound really oversimplified, but it
Good,
works for it works for the clients.
good, good. I appreciate that. I'm a huge fan of the buckets myself. I forgot the simplified way of saying now, soon, and later on. Somehow I got wrapped up in the numbers, so I appreciate that. But we use the buckets as well. I'm glad we're having this conversation, because I'm glad I found someone, or I know someone. 'Cause I didn't find you today, but that I know someone that's having a similar experience. Same here. My phone didn't ring yesterday, didn't ring today.
Mm.
And I did a lot of reaching out though, just like you.
Yeah.
And I actually preempted one or two probably about 2 weeks ago, because as we started off January with it ticking a little bit higher, I'm looking at the risk analysis of this client's later on bucket, and I'm like, look, the higher your Apple, your Tesla, whatever it is, the higher it goes, the more risk you're putting into that bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that sometimes you will get psychologically attached to the number. And
Yeah.
I notice that happens especially when clients will cross over a number with a comma, meaning if they go from 95,000 to 100,000,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden they're, oh, I'm 100,000 there. Well, congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
Good for you. But now they
Mm-hmm.
become attached to that 100,000, and they
Yeah.
forget that it was just 86 months ago.
Right.
This happened
Right.
fast. Okay.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, well, it went down from 100 to 95. Yeah, it did.
Yeah. It
It
did.
also went from 80 to 100.
Yes.
So
And
let's make
still
sure we're
on.
telling the whole story here, because sometimes we get trapped in just telling the story that we just see today versus the story
Mm-hmm.
that's happened all year.
Mm-hmm.
Or when the client goes from 495,000 to 500,000, oh, I've got 500,000. Or when they go from 900,000 to a million, and it happens. There's different hurdles that I see that sometimes they'll get a little emotionally attached to, and the only way to protect them from themselves is to say, "Hey, let's sell some Tesla." What? Well, you bought it for 100. It's now 900. I mean, I was going to be happy with a 10% rate of return. You got 1,000.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
and you
Right.
like the fact that 10,000 turned into almost 100,000. Well, if you
Yeah.
want to keep some of that money,
Yeah. Let's take some of those gains.
because
Let's set them aside.
we could get 10 years from now and it still be worth 90,000, or excuse me, it still be worth your 10,000 worth 100,000, and we'll still look back and say, wow, we did good.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
so sometimes we got to help our clients kind of put that in perspective, and that's really why I wanted to hit the airwaves this week, because this message isn't always just for the people that we're working with on a day-to-day basis. This message is also for the people that were freaking out, that were getting
Yeah.
onto their apps of their Robinhood app or their Schwab
Mm-hmm.
app or whatever app they were getting onto, and saying, oh, I got to sell everything right now, I'm losing my money. Like, are
Right.
you?
Right. Yep.
It
That emotion.
it wasn't really yours. You just got this last week. All you did, when you look at the numbers, were just back to the same price you had in the middle of December.
Yep. It's one of those. It's one of those deals where we tell, and this is kind of more of a conversation we have with our business clients, but we say, hey, you have to be able to look at your business in 3D, and our 3D is for data-driven decisions. Let the data help you make the decisions, not the emotion. I can speak for myself personally, and probably for a ton of people when I say I've yet to see a good business decision made on emotion. Make sure you kind of already said it right there, Johannes, is understand your numbers. This is where you started. This was your cost basis, or your point of entry was, $10. And yeah, that $10 grew to $100. You ain't got to freak out just because your $100 went down to 80, because again, you started out with 10 and we're still at 80, right? So it's one of those understanding the numbers. And a lot of times when people don't understand the data, they get lost in the emotion. So one thing that we always teach our clients on the front end is actually how to calculate ROI. And it's funny because you hear people say return on investment. What's your return on investment? But very few people actually know how to like put that in their calculator. So we actually teach that even more so when we're working with some of our business clients, because if clients are our investment clients, they'll get their ROI on their statement, right? But sometimes we just need to be able to point your eyes in the right direction and say, yeah, this is where you are today, but look at your cost basis where you started. You're still in a good place. But we even use this for even business clients where it's like, hey, what is your ROI on that particular expense? Well, Perry, I don't know. Well, this is how we calculate it. Okay, are you getting a 50% ROI, a 10% ROI? Is it a negative ROI? So when folks start to really understand ROI and understand their numbers, like you said, this investment piece and this business, this entrepreneurship piece is not as difficult as it seems. It's when you're basing these decisions on emotion and you don't have the right data, or you don't know how to read the data that you have. And that's why it's so important for them to work with experts like ourselves, because we can point your eye and just say, okay, you're looking over here. This is the data you need to be paying attention to. Okay, we're cool with that. All right, let's move forward. And then we go back to how the kids doing.
Indeed, indeed. So how are the kids doing?
Oh man, awesome! Just finished up basketball season. I was the head fourth grade girls basketball travel coach. For the listeners here who don't know, I have twin girls. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? I have twin girls, and yeah, man, just had a really good time this season.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear it. Well, hey, man, I know you had a client meeting coming up, so I want to make sure I give you some time back so you can prepare for that. Thank you so much for spending the time with all the listeners today on the Money Script podcast. Please tell folks where they can find you on Instagram, Twitter, wherever you are. Go. This is your plug time.
Oh man, I appreciate that. You can find us just go to perryjeffries.com, perryjeffries.com, and you can connect with us on there. So yep, that's where we are. Or man, you know what I'm saying? Shoot, brother, I'm just happy to be here. So I appreciate you giving me a plug. And again, man, functioning in that mindset of abundance, my friend. So big shout out, the Money Script. And Mr. Harrison for having me on, man. Thank you.
Indeed. And brother, you mentioned earlier, I just want to close with this, is that we don't view each other as competition. Our competition is Gucci. Our competition is Coach. Our competition is Disneyland. Our competition is those airline tickets that you paid way too much for. Our competition is when you go out to eat and you order the appetizer and the entree, and your date gets an appetizer and an entree, and you get a few drinks, and then you leave the doggy bag sitting on the table and don't even bring it home and eat it the next day. Or worse, you bring it home and you let it sit in the refrigerator. That is our competition. It's Indeed. The things you waste your money on. Indeed. So there is a disclaimer that comes at the end of every episode. If you've been listening for a while, you probably go ahead and move on to the next episode. You're like, I've heard that before. But one of the things it says is consult a professional.
Absolute facts.
Whether it's Perry here, whether it's myself or anyone else, consult a professional, get help. Believe me, we can't help all of you, America. Screw America, world. This is a worldwide podcast. We can't help the whole world, but there's a lot of us out there, and you just got to reach out and ask for the help. Ask for the help. So again, my man, thank you very much. You enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we will talk soon. Thanks for joining us on the Money Script podcast. Be sure to check out our other episodes, subscribe, follow, and give us 5 stars. Continue to send your financial questions on Twitter or Instagram at the Money Script. Go to moneyscriptwealth.com and schedule your complimentary consultation to discuss your specific goals and concerns. Financial advisory and investment management services are offered by Money Script Wealth Management PLLC, a registered investment advisory firm registered in the state of Texas and California and other states where exempt. The Money Script LLC and the Money Script Wealth Management PLLC and guests of the episode may have interest in the investments mentioned today. The opinions and views are expressed here are for informational purposes only. This material is educational in nature and should not be deemed as a solicitation for any specific product or service. All investments involve risk and a significant loss of principal. The Money Script nor Money Script Wealth Management offer tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax advisor or attorney for specific advice about your situation. Until next time.